Hi, everyone. My name is Dmitry Vlasov, and I want to welcome you to the Student Alumni Association Moving to the City Boston event. This event is hosted by the Student Alumni Association. I'm also the Alumni Relations Coordinator here at UMass, and I'm from the class of 2019, and I will be your moderator for tonight. So welcome to this event. As you can see, this event is done online via a platform called Zoom that features a chat box below for you to post questions for our three panelists at the end of the event. Video chat will only be turned on for myself and the three panelists, while viewers will remain anonymous. The format of tonight's event will be 45 minutes of questions created by members of the Student Alumni Association and 15 minutes of questions from you. As mentioned, your questions can be posted in the chat box below. If you would like to follow up with our three panelists after their event, their emails will be provided in an email following this event. So tonight, I will introduce you to our three panelists. Joining us is Molly Bushell, Samira Chlu, and Jessica Haggerty. And Molly, you can take it away.
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Molly Boschall. I graduated UMass Amherst as part of the class of 2014. I was a double major in journalism and English, and I've lived around downtown Boston the past few years, including the North End and Beacon Hill.
Great. And Samira?
Hi everyone, I'm Samira. I graduated in 2016. I studied architecture and I've been living in East Boston since that.
Okay, and Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Haggerty. I was a theater major in the class of 2011. I've lived all over the city, pretty much in every neighborhood, but I currently live in South Boston.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to move into questions. The first category that we're going to talk about is why you moved to Boston in the first place. So Jessica, what made you choose to live in Greater Boston?
Yeah, so I'm from the North Shore. I grew up in the area, so Boston has kind of always been my city. When I think of the city, Boston was one that comes to mind. Being a theater major, I kind of had three traditional choices, which was New York, LA, or rural community theaters, and none of that really kind of appealed to me. But Boston has a really thriving arts community, and I knew I could kind of get the best of a smaller city as well as being a part of this larger arts community.
Great. And Molly?
Yeah, actually similar to Jessica, I grew up about 20 minutes outside of the city, but towards the south. And so I kind of grew up taking the commuter rail in or hopping on the Red Line every now and then. So I always knew that I loved Boston, and it was a place that I really enjoyed going for arts and food and just fun. And so when I graduated, I knew that it was probably an experience I wanted to have living in the city and having that right outside my door.
Awesome. And Samira?
On my hand is pretty different. My family lives here. So after UMass, I decided to come back in Boston and then just work out here. And then, yeah, do what I have to do. So just to stay close to the family, and I decided to move back in Boston.
Awesome. Well, so Jessica, what do you think the benefits are of living in the city? Would you consider living outside the city at all?
Yeah, so because I grew up not far, I definitely took some time between, after college, taking advantage of how close my parents lived to the city and living there. So I lived outside the city for a bit. I would say the best thing for me is the convenience of having so many things in such a small space. The commutes to work are easier when you're in the city as opposed to having to get into the city. And then, you're kind of, there's a wealth of choices of food, of activities, of different cultures to partake in. So I just kind of liked, there's always something going on, the commotion of it all. So I've lived outside the city, but I definitely prefer being in the city now.
Great. And what about yourself, Molly?
Yeah, again, I would kind of second Jessica's answer. So I moved home for a year after I graduated, and I'm actually originally from Canton, Massachusetts. So, like I said, about 20 to 30 minutes outside of Boston. And it's a sort of different pace, I think, when you're comparing the two. So I would absolutely consider kind of living outside of the city, but I've really found that being in Boston, having everything outside your door, everything moving quickly or more quickly, and really kind of being able to be self-sufficient, just in terms of hopping on the T, going from place to place, trying new things. It's something that I really enjoy, and so I think I see myself being here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And Samira, what do you think?
So
Yeah, go
yeah,
for it.
Jessica and Molly cover everything, but that's mostly the same as mine. That's the benefit of living in the city. Everything is nearby, and then everything is like walking distance. Also, everything is nearby. And then when living outside the city, then you have to drive. Traffic comes in, stuff like that's coming, which is inconvenient. So there's a lot of pro with moving in the city because everything is next to each other. Everything is nearby. You don't have to like wake up early at 5 a.m., drive, and then go to work at like 8. Well, you
Yep.
can just get up late, and then just like when you guys have classes, get up late, go to your class on time because your housing is nearby. Same with the city, it's about the same thing.
Got it. So about housing, I know, Samira, you mentioned that you live with your family, but what would you recommend, based off of experiences from friends or family recommendations? How would you find your first apartment, and what type of documents, do you think are needed to start the process? So what should someone look for in an apartment tour?
So when I first got here, it's my sister who moved here first before me, and then she was here, so I decided to follow her. Cause so if you guys have any family member who live in the city, you don't have to like go another states, and you think it's better for you. Don't be afraid. Stay with your member, stay with the family, and you get to save more money when you work, and then you will get more money, and after you can get your own place somewhere else. But if you have family around, I would recommend you to like live with them. So my sister was here, and then I moved back with my sister and my family, and then the paper that mostly like people will ask you is like wherever you go will ask you for like a bank statement. They just want to make
Mhm.
sure how much money you do, and then how much I like you they can be sure they can afford the rent that they're asking you, and also of course your ID. And then most of them will ask you like sponsor, like they'll want you to have someone that will like cover kind of like cover you when like you don't have the ability to do so. So they'll ask people regarding those people. And when you look for like an apartment, I would say look around the neighborhood, what they have around. I live in East Boston, and we chose this neighborhood. I used to live before in Medford, and we moved in East Boston because in Medford, when I used to live, I had to take the bus and then wait for the bus, then catch the train, and then all of those things was like so far away with me planning ahead of time when I should leave home. If the bus is late, everything is like everything like messes up things. So when you look around, look about like near the train nearby. If it's something next to your like the job like you may want and stuff like that, look about near a station, the activities they have around, if they have like a gym,
Got
if
it.
you like to work out
Yeah.
and stuff like
Awesome.
that.
Well, thank you for providing us with all that information. I think that really helps us
Yeah.
when looking for an apartment. And Molly, do you have anything to add to that? How did you go about finding an apartment in Boston?
Yeah, so I was lucky in that my random roommate my freshman year at UMass Amherst turned out to be one of my best friends for my whole life. And so we kind of moved back to our hometowns for, like I said, a year. And then both kind of were like, hey, we want to move to Boston. We knew we wanted to live in the North End. And so that really kind of narrowed down what neighborhood we were looking in. And then from there, we searched Craigslist and Zillow and all of the websites that you usually see and kind of looked for things that were in our budget and in the neighborhood that we wanted to live in. I think Samira makes a great point about having a co-signer. That's something that we ran into with every apartment that we tried, especially if you're kind of a newer graduate and you maybe don't have a track record of renting from former places. A landlord is probably going to want to have an adult, or you are an adult, but an older adult or someone that can cover for things if it doesn't work out the way you anticipate. So I would anticipate that. And I mean, in terms of an apartment tour, I will say that there can be a lot of pressure in Boston to act quickly once you find a unit that you really like. And so some people will bring their checkbooks with them. So if they go on a tour and it turns out to be the one, they can write a check right there, leave their application with the realtor, and wait to hear back from the landlord. So I would just say be prepared to make a quick decision if you know and you can trust your gut and go with that. But if you're not sure, definitely feel free to come back to the neighborhood at different times of day, on different days, see different things, because you are going to be living there for a year. And so really make sure that it seems like something that could be a good future for you.
Great. And Jessica, what about yourself?
Yeah, I would definitely second, especially if you're looking around September 1st, which is when most apartments change over in Boston. Make sure you're ready to kind of make that decision right away, because there's not much time. Just the nature, unfortunately, the nature of Boston is that it's a student city, so we turn over in September really quickly. I made sure to have references, and some of it was like an internship supervisor that just could speak to my work ethic as a reference for an apartment. But yeah, as far as an apartment tour, I would say, kind of in addition to keeping in mind whatever you're interested in looking for personally, some things to check quick are just, do the locks work? Do the windows open and close? And is there a refrigerator? Because it's not legally required to be provided.
It's not a given.
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So in terms of like preparing to, let's say, of course, you don't need to put a refrigerator into your apartment. You require a housing budget, when you're looking for an apartment. So Samira, I was wondering, what do you think a good housing budget is when looking for an apartment? Do you have, and what other expenses are there to consider outside of just having your own apartment? What other expenses should someone consider when living in the city?
I mean, there's quite a bit. Few expenses as of when you live in, like, you take care of like of everything with the apartments, which is like electricity, and then definitely if you live in the city, you want to know about parking. That's an issue. So make sure you know where you live are going to either have like a parking spot, if you can park outside and stuff like that. And definitely about everything about like heat, water. Where I live, everything is included. So make sure, like, it's also depends also where you live in Boston, because the rent depend of which and then where in the city you live. The closest from downtown, the more expensive, but they have like more utilities and stuff like that that will compose the renting. Yeah. So yeah, that's mostly like what I mean.
I definitely agree. Having the utilities factored in is really important for an apartment. And so Molly, I know that having a housing budget, especially for yourself living in the North End, is really,
and down too with Jessica.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yep. And I know that living in the North End, is pretty expensive. Mm-hmm. So what does your housing budget look like? What other expenses do you think from your side living in the North End do people need to expect?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about a budget, obviously everyone kind of has an ideal state in mind, but I find that the two major factors to think about are how far away from downtown are you willing to be, and how many people are you willing to live with. So if you're trying to find a studio or a one-bedroom in downtown Boston, you're probably going to be spending at least $1,800 or so. There are probably some in the $1,650 range, but they go way upwards of $2,100 to $2,200. If you're looking further outside the city, which might be like something like Allston or Brighton, Brookline, if you're willing to have a few roommates, I'd say in my experience, that would usually be at least $500 to $600 a month. But that's kind of the range. And then in terms of additional expenses to consider, having a Charlie card if you don't have a car is huge. You're going to need one. That can be, I believe it would be somewhere in the $80 a month range.
It's going up to 90.
It's going up to 90. Well, so budget about 90 for that. And then to Samira's point about utilities, one thing that I didn't necessarily think about is air conditioning and heating. So if you can live without an air conditioner in the summer, you're going to save a ton of money, but then expect high heating bills in the winter, and just know that like when you're adjusting your thermostat for your comfort, you're going to get the bill for that. And it's not always something that you can say, oh, it's going to be exactly X amount of dollars, and you just kind of have to be prepared.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, especially that last name, because I feel like a lot of us have the luxury of living with our parents, and we don't really pay attention to the heating bill or any utility expenses. So I think it's definitely going to be important to take that into consideration. Jessica, do you have anything else to add in regards to the housing, having a housing budget and the other expenses to anticipate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ultimately it's being honest with yourself about what your budget really is, and kind of where you're willing to make sacrifices and compromises. Um, where I live now in Southie is it's more expensive than where I first lived, which was in Alston, Brighton. But again, it's just kind of learning to be honest with yourself, I think, is the most important part. And then finding which neighborhood fits you best. As far as other expenses, I mean, the Charlie card, I never thought it was going to be that expensive. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that it keeps going up. But supposedly it's going to stay at 90 for 3 years. But it just, and in addition to that, I would also say just keep in mind, like, if you're going to eat out a lot, food's good in the city, and there's a lot more options, but it adds up pretty fast. So
Yeah.
And just to clarify for anybody watching, the Charlie card is to use the MBTA transit system, the bus system, and the train systems.
21, 125 a week. Had that for months, almost 100.
Wow. And
Yeah.
Samira, you mentioned that you live in East Boston.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what do you think about East Boston, and what neighborhoods do you recommend students look at when they're considering finding an apartment?
So as Boston, as I said, I was not near Boston before. I was like next to like Medford and Malden, but I moved to East Boston because I was just like I was living in downtown, but like because I'm like a stop away from downtown, or like 2 stop away from the city. So it's not inside the downtown, but at least it's nearby. So definitely look for like a places like which is not only like near downtown, but somewhere closest. And East Boston started to like grow a lot. They started building a lot of things, and I'm here. I've been here for the last 5 years. When I went to UMass, I was in Boston before transferring there, and I came back. And then when I the 2 years I've been to UMass, I came back here. Everything changed. It's crazy. They keep building and building. So I love being here. That's why I'm still here, because it's a great neighborhood. And yeah, they have everything around, and then stores around, shopping areas around. So that's why I'm still here.
Great. And Molly, how about yourself? What neighborhoods do you recommend? I know North End is one neighborhood that's really desired by a lot of students. That's why it's so expensive. You got a lot of nearby universities with students pursuing master's programs there. So what do you, outside of, other than the North End, do you recommend any other cities as well?
Yeah, I mean, the North End is near and dear to my heart. It was the first place that I lived in the city. And when you're talking about things like food and things to do and just historical sites, and walking around that neighborhood is just an adventure in and of itself. And so I really loved that. But I might even recommend, I know it can be tricky for students who may not have their job lined up yet, but if you do and you know where you're going to work, look around at the public transportation lines nearby, at the bus routes. Find something that's not going to demand that you commute like an hour, hour and a half every day if you can avoid it. If you have someplace that you really want to live and it's worth it, then go for it. But places like Alston and Brighton can be great for students or recent graduates because it is a little bit less expensive. There's a great culture scene. There's a lot of concerts in that area. It's right on the Green Line, so you can get to downtown. If I were taking a look now as a recent graduate, I'd probably consider Alston Brighton.
Great. And Jessica?
yeah, so I personally lived in Alston Brighton. I lived in the North End. I lived in Charlestown, and now I live in Southie. I will say Southie is definitely really popular as far as like there's definitely a younger crowd. There's also a fair amount of families who are now settling in Southie. Alston Brighton is really good for students. Like Molly said, there's a ton of bars. There's a ton of activity. There's kind of always something happening there. But I would say, be a little willing to look outside the city and also kind of look where the schools are in the city, because that's where the students are living already. Medford, I'm sorry, I have a dog. Medford, which is where Tufts is, has some great options. Alston Brighton also is where BU and BC are, so there's plenty of places around there. I'd also say Mission Hill, which is near Northeastern, And then, Quincy, south of the city as well, you can find deals. It's really just a matter about kind of, like I said earlier, just kind of knowing where you can compromise. And distance is sometimes one of those things.
I definitely agree. And one of our attendees, one of our viewers had a question, and they were wondering, how early did you begin looking for apartments? Does anybody want to? Yep.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. So I had the flexibility of living at home before my first apartment. So we weren't on a hard deadline of having to get out, and we were both working, and my roommate at the time and I were both working in the city. We ended up finding our apartment, which was an October 1st lease. We found it in July, and we went with our checkbooks, and we kind of filled out the application right there. So a few months, if you have flexibility as far as when you're moving, there's definitely a little bit more, you can be a little bit more choosy. But if you're on September 1st, I would start looking now. If you want to be signing the September 1st lease, start looking right away.
Great. Molly or Samira, do you have anything to add to that? When to start looking?
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar situation where my first lease started, it was either June 15th or July 15th. And so that was really lucky for me that I had, A, it was off cycle, and B, I could start looking sort of spring and have a good idea of what I wanted to do for the rest of the summer. But now I'm thinking about, my next September, what I'm doing. And like Jessica said, I'm already kind of looking at places, reaching out to different real estate agents and, starting to go on tours. From what I've heard, February, March, April is when tenants usually start getting back to their landlords and saying that they're not going to renew the lease. So you should probably start to see more and more come out as options.
Great. And Samira, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's about the same. I mean, the early, the better. You don't want to rush when you look for your apartment, because that's where you're going to be living for at least a year. So, I mean, the earlier you can get to that, the better. But most of the lease ends up during the year, which is like May, June. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one thing I think that's really important is, where do I begin? What websites or resources do I use to find an apartment that's affordable in my budget and in the area I want to live, for example. So Samira, I'm just going to go back to you. Do you have any websites or resources you recommend to find affordable housing?
There is the one that say Affordable Housing Boston, where you can find some of them. And if you're looking for like roommate and stuff like that, I recommend go on Facebook, and then there is different like a group, and then look into them, and then connect with people over there. And Craigslist has been one of the options also. I remember when we first moved here, that's what we've been using. So yeah, so that's mostly all. Don't be afraid to get on those like Facebook or like social media things, and may some of your friends may know someone also. So look up with your friends also.
Got it. And Molly, what about, do you have any advice for websites or resources to use?
Yeah, I found my first apartment on Craigslist and my second on Zillow. So those would probably be my two recommendations. I will say though that if you find a deal, like an apartment that doesn't match your expectations of how much it should cost for the area that you're looking in, it is possible that it's too good to be true. Sometimes you'll see an apartment listed like 5 to 10 times and it's the same exact one, and you're like, this is weird. Or you might reach out and the realtor will say, oh, that just leased this week. Are you like, what are you actually interested in? I can send you other options. So I would just say bring your patience with those types of websites and definitely approach it with just a healthy amount of skepticism. But I mean, my apartment that I did end up finding for the first time was slightly below what I expected for the market. And it just turned out to be a good deal. So as long as you've seen it and preferably brought a friend along so that you have a second set of eyes, then those kinds of websites like Craigslist can be really helpful.
Got it. And Jessica?
Yeah, the same thing, Craigslist and Zillow. And then if you have resources in your own life, I found an apartment. I took over a lease for a friend for my apartment in the North End. She was moving, so I took that over. And then, I've also found, when I lived in Charlestown, I actually filled an empty room, and I found those girls on Craigslist as well. So the other thing is that I have also used the app PadMapper, which was just easy because it put basically all the Craigslist ads on a map, and you could kind of look around based on where you were interested.
Great. Awesome. Well, I can see that there's a lot of viewers posting questions about housing. We will answer those questions. We'll have the panelists answer all your questions the last 15 minutes of the event. But for now, we're going to transition over to spending, which is really important because outside of having an apartment, you have to worry about food, you have to worry about commuting, you have to worry about social life and a lot of other factors. So, Molly, what does your budget look like? And are there any fees you didn't expect initially when you first moved to Boston?
Yeah, I find that budgeting can be challenging in all honesty. So you have a certain number of things that you can count on as expenses, and they're not variables. You know how much the rent is, you know how much the Wi-Fi is going to cost every month, your Charlie card. There are things that you can count on, and then there are things that kind of might sneak up on you, like a high heating bill in January or February that you weren't expecting, or like I was saying, air conditioning. So I do have sort of a spreadsheet that I have to keep track of all those fixed expenses. I have things that I budget for so that I have money if something comes up, like a doctor's appointment, or for me, like contact lenses. You have to start thinking about all of these things that maybe you take for granted as just a thing that you can always cover, because when you are kind of moving out on your own and you have more of these sort of line items in your budget, keeping track and having that cushion can be really helpful because you know it's always there. But I know Jessica mentioned this earlier. I will say that when you're in the city, it's a lot easier to go out, and it's a lot easier to eat out, take out, going out for drinks after work on a Monday or Tuesday. So you do have to kind of either have a really strong budget and a strong will to say, that's not my priority right now. My priority is saving this money for this other thing, or a cushion so that you understand how much flexibility you do have for things like that that come up.
Got it. And Jessica, what do you have? Do you have anything to add in terms of budgeting and what fees to look for?
I mean, I would say if there's any expenses that your job allows you to pay pre-tax, that really does make a world of difference. So obviously, when you're on your own healthcare, it's typically paid pre-tax. But other things like my Charlie card is paid for out of payroll deduction, so I never actually have to pay for it. And I mean, just taxes add up, and the older you get, the more you'll see how much they add up. So I would say take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, it's really, again, I've learned it the hard way that you just really have to be honest with how much money is coming in and what can afford to go out. And the city's exciting, and it's easy to get caught up kind of in the freedom of having bars right behind your house. But it's just kind of being honest, and really, I would really recommend just keeping track of your finances as much as you can.
Great. And Samira?
Yeah, Moya just cover everything mostly, but I do drive, so that's something that's adding up on my budget with like my car insurance and then gas, and then so there is some occasion I need my car to drive for work and some not. So I'm also paying for my Charlie ticket, and I'm also paying like for my gas and stuff like that. So that's just something else that you guys should consider if you like one of you drive and then you want to live near the city. Make sure you have like this consideration also.
Great. Awesome. So, that's going to transition excellently into our next category, which is transportation. And Samira, I know you'll be touching on this right now. So I know you mentioned that you use a car as a mode of transportation in the city. So, and I know you touched upon it a little bit, but if you could elaborate, that would be great. So what are the benefits of having a car versus using public transportation in Boston?
Definitely early in the morning. So there is, okay. So you get to work at 8 and then there is traffic. You don't want to get to your car because you'll get stuck on traffic for like 20, sometimes 40 minutes. But at the same times, when you want to get a train early 7 in the morning, there is a lot of people just like you who's waiting for the train. So the train gets super packed. So I've been taking the train early mornings, and sometimes I have to wait 3 trains. But I'm so glad we're nearby the Blue Line. Trains come in every 5 minutes, 8 minutes. So make sure you plan ahead of time when you have to get to work or like get to somewhere early in the morning when you get the train, because some people doesn't drive. So everyone who gets the train and everyone wants to get it on time, so everyone get the train, and then the train gets so packed. So this is that's the only like pro I will like, and the con I would rather like drive my car. But sometimes with traffic hitting, you don't want to drive because you don't want to sit on traffic and then wait, and the train is always faster. And yeah, so but that's mostly, so yeah,
Got
take possession of that.
Yep. So in the interest of time, Molly, I'll just have you finish up the transportation category. So what type of transportation do you use in the city, and what are the benefits of having a car versus public transportation?
Yeah, I have actually never had a car in the city, and I was a big car person at UMass, and I never thought that I could live without my car. And so if you had told me then that I would just be living on my Charlie card, I would tell you you'd be wrong. But I really just love being able to hop on the T to get pretty much anywhere I need to go. I'm also super lucky in that most of my family is on the commuter rail, and so I can go to South Station, jump on the commuter rail, and be home fairly easily. I know not everybody has that luxury, and particularly people with cars have the opportunity to just jump in the car and, take a weekend trip, go to New Hampshire, go to Maine, go really anywhere they want. Whereas for me, that takes a little bit more planning. I might have to take like a train out of North Station, or maybe I can't get there at all and I need to find a ride. But I will say, if you're ever in a pinch, it's kind of nice that within the city, I'd say most Uber or Lyfts are about $15 to $25, depending on where you're going. So if you ever do get stuck, or you don't necessarily want to take the T, you do have a little bit of flexibility there.
Got it. So throughout our conversation about living in the city, I know one thing that we talked about, a big expense actually, is the social scene in Boston. So Jessica, what's the social scene like in the city of Boston? For someone new that's moving into the city, what are some ways of creating a new social scene for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same as it was in college, and like not being afraid to put yourself out there. And again, kind of paying attention to any resources that you may have. When I was in UMass, I was a sister of Chi Omega, so I got really involved with the alumni network in Boston. And so I met, women of all ages, going out to brunch, going to movies, having dinner, just trying different things with this new crowd of people. A lot of my friends from UMass also moved to the city, so we were able to kind of stay pretty close and try new things. And then, I mean, I would say if you have a chance to make a friend at work, make that friend at work. You spend a lot of time with people, especially in your first jobs out of college. And I'm still friends with people that from my first job. We still hang out pretty much every weekend. None of us work there anymore, but we've stayed tight through these over the years now. So that would be my advice. As far as what the social scene is like, I mean, Boston is not known for its club scene. But there are plenty of sports leagues. There are plenty of sports bars. There are plenty of social sports leagues that then go out to sports bars. So it's just kind of finding, the things you like, your own interests. I'm sure there's some way to take advantage of them in the city.
Got it. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of diverse and opportunities for people to take advantage of. Molly, do you have anything to add in terms of the social scene and ways of creating a new social scene for yourself when you're moving to the city for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I would second everything Jessica says. My sort of social scene 1 to 2 years out of college was mostly my friends from growing up, my friends from UMass Amherst, and then some friends from work and friends of friends from work. So it kind of just extends naturally from there. But there are a lot of great options for more sort of structured social activities too, if you decide to go that route.
Got it. And Samira?
And yeah, like Jessica and Molly covered. I mean, I've been here before going to UMass. I was in school in Charleston before graduating there, so I had like friends already from my first years. And after when I got my first job, I had like coworkers, and then I do different jobs, so I have different like coworkers. And there is also this app that I've been using not too long ago, just to like sometimes you just want to like change your circles, meet new people. And it's a pretty cool app. It's called Meetup, and there is like a lot of different like age range of group, or like different like club association, like real estate people can come in, and like people from 30 years old to like 40 can like meet up and stuff like that. So try those things also. Everything is like reshaping the same as yours, like even new friends, new connection, and it's a great app. If you didn't know about the app, download the app and then look over that. And then someone who like new in the city will be a good, really good, great tool for you.
Awesome. So a big thing here also in Boston. Boston is definitely known for their food. There's probably a plethora of good places to eat, and I'm sure living in the city, you three have a lot of good recommendations. So Jessica, what are some good places to eat in Boston? Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, my dog's being loud. I would recommend looking at like boston.com or Best of Boston. It's lists that come out every year, basically ranging top to bottom. I will say, the North End is known for its food for a reason. And when I lived there really wasn't anywhere you could walk into that you weren't going to have a delicious meal. Boston has a great food truck scene now too, which is awesome. And those are some of the best food I've ever had has come from Boston food trucks. My favorite is Roxy's, which is grilled cheese, and the Green Munster is the best sandwich. But yeah, that's mostly what I've been kind of telling everyone about lately. But really, I would just say try new things. If someone's saying a restaurant's good, I'm sure it is. Word of mouth travels fast, and it's Boston. Everyone has an opinion. So.
Yep. And Molly, how about yourself? What are some good recommendations you have to get something that
Yeah, that's so accurate. So when I was in the North End, I basically lived off of Polly's on Salem Street. Jessica, I don't know if you know that one.
I was team Monica's.
Oh, wow. Okay, Monica's is great too. So like Polly's, I could consistently count on like more than probably once a week getting dinner there. Monica's has some of the best subs in Boston. Pizzeria Regina's is also great. Their like original location is in the North End. Dino's in the North End is fantastic. Those were all kind of my classics that I know I could count on any of the day of the week. And then there are more fun just like going out restaurants like Frico and things like that. But yeah, try new things. Like even if you've never had like a certain type of cuisine before, and just like walk into a restaurant and try something new, ask what's good. So I don't know if that's a specific place, but those are all fun things to do. And I mean, just getting out and seeing as much as the city as you can, I guess.
Awesome. A lot of good recommendations. And Samira, do you have any places to recommend to eat at or some fun things to do in the city?
I mean, I love eating Thai food and then Chinese food. There's a really good in Newbury Street. Thai Bazaar. Newbury Street has like great restaurant. And look around your neighborhoods when you decide to leave. I recently started walking around and then driving around my neighborhoods and then trying new food over there. I live in a Hispanic neighborhood, so I get to try like Hispanic food, which is good, and I love it. And fun things to do. I mean, I don't really like go out as much as I used to do when I first got back from school from UMass, but all I do is mostly like movies or like catch up with friends at the mall, or mostly like go to in Fenway. It's called Lucky Strike. I go to Jillian's. They have like social Saturdays or like social things like that, just to like meet up people and stuff. But that's all I do here. So
Awesome.
yeah.
It sounds like a lot of good places to go to. And so before we get to answering the questions from our viewers, we're going to go into the last category, and I think it's personally the most important one. And so we're very lucky to have you three tonight, because I know you've had a lot of life experiences living in the city of Boston. And Samira, I'll go back to you. So what advice would you share with a recent graduate moving to Boston?
So if you advise, I would say when you move in, the first thing that uh, I will recommend is like definitely look around the city and then look at the first like places you want to go and then visit, because as soon as like you get your hands on something, you'll get super busy. That's all you'll do, like do what you have to do, come back home and then just like rest up and stuff like that. And so yeah, and then don't rush up things. And I had my first job after, I would say 6 or even 8 months after graduation. I gave up. I applied a lot of job and then I wasn't getting any answer after 6 months. and I decided to do things on my own. So I opened like a business with my family, and I catch up a few other jobs I used to do here before as babysitting or like coaching because I'm a soccer coach, so I coach soccer, and I catch up all those jobs before. And then after a few months, make sure you guys, whatever your major is, if you have like a website or stuff like that, get into that as architecture. So I was in a forum called Archinect, and that's where my first employer found me over there, and they reached out to me asking me for an interview. I thought it was a scam at first because I didn't apply it there, and then they reached out to me. So make sure you guys, if you have any platform for your major, go over there. It's in Greater Boston. Take care of that, so that's people who will like reach you guys out there to like those things. But yeah, so don't give up when you don't get response. Just keep applying, and at the same time, discover the city. Because as soon as you're gonna get your first job, you're gonna be so busy working that you won't even have time to like spend time with like your dearest friend and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing that advice. I'm sure it's really important for us graduates to take away when we move to the city. And Jessica, what advice would you share to a recent graduate moving to Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I think when moving anywhere, I would say, the biggest thing to consider is what you want and what you need. And I've said it again, where you're willing to compromise. I worked in the arts and I worked in theater. So I was working from 11 to 11. So I was working at night. So I knew I needed to be close to work. I needed it to be convenient. But I didn't need to live in a luxury high rise with a pool and a gym and a security guard. And so that was kind of where I was willing to compromise. But other than that, I would say try new things, visit new neighborhoods. If you heard about a restaurant getting a great review in the Globe, go and visit it. If things start trending on Facebook and on Twitter, go and see them. We live in a really great time where you can find out about things right when they're happening. So take advantage of it.
Got it. And Molly, do you have any advice to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the person listening to this, but if you're anything like me, I would say just trust your gut and go for it. There can be kind of a lot of unknowns when you're graduating from school and you don't know where you're going to work or where you're going to live or what this new place is like, or kind of figuring out what you actually want for the next kind of phase. You're not going to be able to know everything before you probably jump into moving into the city. So I would say try to figure out as much as you can, maybe 80 to 90%, and then the rest you're going to learn when you get there. And it's a lot of learning by doing, and that's totally okay. So just kind of know that the act of kind of moving out on your own and trying a new thing, whether it's Boston or a different city, is kind of a victory in and of itself.
Awesome. Well, great to hear. So thank you all so much for answering all those questions. We're going to move to now answering the questions from our viewers. Feel free to chime in whenever you want. Not all of you need to speak, or just one can speak, whatever works best. So one viewer asks, is renter's insurance important to have?
So insurance in general, you pay money into it so that should something happen, you're covered. So it depends on kind of where you live and how neurotic you are, because I'm a terrified person. So I've had renter's insurance in every apartment, haven't had to use it, haven't had to do anything with it. But for me too, at least I know the plan that I have, it covers anything that happens in my partner's car. So if our belongings are in there and the car gets broken into, then our belongings, we can make a claim for that. I highly recommend it. I also have friends who say it's a wasted expense. So it's kind of balancing your own, how you feel about insurance in general.
Got it. And Molly or Samira, do either of you have anything to add for that one?
Yeah, I would say you have to be able to accept the consequences of if things go wrong. So if you really want to have insurance, that's a really smart thing to do. So absolutely go for it. If you feel like it'll help you sleep better at night. I mean, particularly living at least in downtown Boston, but I think greater Boston, a lot of the buildings are old. The landlords, they do their best and a lot of them are nice, but I had hot water heaters in the units above me explode 2 or 3 times and the water would come down through the ceiling. And, there have been unfortunately, like I've heard of fires in downtown Boston, and not that that happens, and hopefully, God forbid, it wouldn't happen to anyone. But if you have kind of events like that that pop up, renter's insurance is a great way to be prepared. And if you feel like maybe that's not where you want to prioritize spending your money, just kind of being able to know what you absolutely need to have in your life and making sure that you have a safety net of savings put away to cover something like that.
Yeah. And Samira, do you have anything to add to that?
No, the girl mostly cover everything.
Great. Awesome to hear. I definitely agree with all of you. I think renter's insurance is important. I think especially recent graduates who are living on such a tight budget, a lot of people are going to be like, nothing's going to get broken into, nothing's going to happen to my apartment, and I need to spend my money somewhere else. I don't need to spend on insurance. And a lot of people tend to think like that. So I think it's really important to really consider renter's insurance, and if it's going to be important to you, because in the event that something goes wrong, the fee is going to be much more higher than you expect. And I think that's really important to understand. So I think Samira is going to be joining us again. I hope she's with us still right now. It looks like she is. I think her camera went out, but that's okay. So we'll move on to there we go. We'll move on to the next question. So would you say it's difficult to secure an apartment with roommates before you solidify a job?
I mean, it's kind of how much you have saved and other resources you have available. My first apartment, I had one friend, we knew we wanted to live together, but we both had jobs. Personally, I've considered moving to other cities and have done kind of the preliminary work for that, but when a job fell through, I stopped my search. But that's me. I don't feel comfortable moving to a city where I don't have a job secured. If you have, enough savings and the flexibility to do that, then that's totally up to you. It also depends on what field you're in.
Great. And Molly or Samira, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Great. And Samira, anything to add?
No, that's mostly, yeah, I don't think, I mean, it's always good to like have a secure job when you move in because you can afford, but as long as you have saving and then you can afford your rent, and then you having like a job shouldn't affect then you paying for your rent. So as long as you have the will and then the money, then you're fine.
Got it. So I know we all touched upon a little bit about recommendations for good food to eat and places to go. We were hoping that you could right now elaborate a little bit more on what's your favorite place in the city. Or it could be food, it could be just visiting a monument, visiting somewhere significant. What's your favorite place to go to?
Can I start? You guys should actually, like I said, I have a business with my family. We open, it's gonna be a year in July. We open a creperie. So it's like we sell crepes and waffle. It's in the North End. It's in the Boston Public Market, which I'm gonna mention. You guys should definitely discover. It's a great place where there's different kind of food, and so it's a market also. So they sell eggs, and then everything has like meat. They also have like food, and I discovered this market not too long ago. Since I opened the business, and they have great place. Noodle Lab is like one of my favorite over there. Red Best is inside the market also. They have one of the best fries I've ever eaten downtown. And yeah, and my creperie, we sell crepes and waffle. We have sweets and savories. We have vegan also. So stop by over there when you guys have a chance. And one of my friends has a blog where she posts all the pictures all the food she's been eating all over Boston. So definitely I'm gonna tap that on the chat so you guys can see. It's on Instagram. If you have Instagram, you can check her up. She has all the food that she's been eating over there, and mostly like everything is good because some of the restaurants she's been eating, I've been over there because I follow her, and I was like, oh, let me try this restaurant. The food looks good. So all the pictures I liked, I was over there and tried the restaurant. But definitely look in different, all over Boston, all over different, like Cambridge has good restaurant. And so check a place, look at like neighborhood, Cambridge, Malden, and look up online what restaurant around, and definitely look at the review helps a lot.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely look over the review, like when you see what's the top 5 places in Cambridge, top in East Boston, top in like Malden, take consideration of them, because people go over there and then actually like try the food and they know what they talk about that. So don't say, oh, it's just like a review, like it's one comment, but those comment matter. So yeah, so I'm gonna start right now like the thing on Instagram. You guys can look over, and then she have all the restaurant all over Boston.
Great. Well, thanks so much for elaborating on the restaurants. We'll definitely have to visit that crepe business. I'm a huge fan myself, so I'm really excited to visit it one day.
Good.
So Jessica and Molly, do either of you have anything to elaborate on for a favorite place in the city?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's the Rose Kennedy Greenway, which if you don't know about Boston and the Big Dig, Boston's Highway 93 used to cut the city in half. Big Dig, they put it underground, and where it used to be is now this beautiful park. And it basically is a park that goes from North Station to South Station. And kind of everything is on it. So that's what the North End is right off of it. The waterfront's right off of it. The food trucks are there. The Freedom Trail kind of cuts through it. It's this great little patch of kind of public art, of parks, of greenery in the city. So it's kind of really, you get the best of being outside, you get the best of the city, kind of everything all in one. So I think that's my favorite place.
Awesome. And Molly?
Yeah, I mean, Jessica's reading my mind. So my favorite park would probably be the very top of the Greenway near the North End and North Station. They have little fountains and swings, and it's just really great. But honestly, my favorite parts and times in the city are usually when I'm running. I really love to run along the Freedom Trail and the waterfront. So Boston has this thing called the Harbor Walk, where it's literally just like sidewalks that kind of line what used to be piers. It goes like all the way.
It's 40 miles long.
It's really long. It's like 40 miles long. So you can just kind of be on the water. You feel the breeze. You get to appreciate how beautiful Boston is. And you get to kind of see all of these sites that you've associated with Boston your whole life up close. So yeah, just getting outside and enjoying the public spaces.
Awesome. And our last question from our viewers, for someone who is looking to live in Boston to work for the summer, where should they search for sublets?
I never personally did a sublet, but I know people who have well, I guess I took over at least, but Craigslist is where I have found my rooms when I was becoming, just looking for a room, not an apartment with roommates. I also know friends who've put rooms up there, but the Facebook Marketplace, I guess, is becoming pretty popular for people to post things to. And I would say, again, any kind of, if you have a community at UMass, if you're part of a club, if there's a Boston kind of club of the similar interest, try and find those Facebook groups as well, because they can be great jumping off points at the very least.
Got it. And Molly or Samira?
Yeah, it's what Jessica said. Definitely Facebook. Try out Facebook. There's a lot of groups, like I said I talked about that earlier. And so yeah, and definitely ask current friends if they know someone who may know someone also. So yeah.
Great. And Molly?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I've never actually taken over a sublet, so I'm not sure, but I've seen them in all of those places.
Great. And so in your opinion, we're getting a couple more questions from students right now as the event ends soon. In terms of what are some good safe/unsafe neighborhoods to consider?
I mean, every neighborhood is different. Like you could live somewhere in East Boston where one side of East Boston is really safe, the other one is unsafe. Just like GP, like I used to work in Jamaican Plain, and then where I used to work is like really safe, and then like people will just walk at night safely. But then other places, like I've heard a lot of things about Dorchester. I've seen on my own eyes like a traffic over there, and then just people like stealing things and then things happening. Definitely Dorchester is not a safe. I mean, depends where in Dorchester, but Dorchester is like I wouldn't move myself over there. And yeah, so that's, I know a lot of I have a lot of friends living over there, and some of them complain a lot. So yeah, I mean Jamaican Plain, it's going all right. Roslindon also, it's kind of after Jamaican Plain and Roxbury, but I mean all the city has the like safe space and an order. So I live in in East Boston. My neighborhood stuff happened.
Mhm.
I had a few shots last year, but now I live next to the police office, so now security is more they're getting more advanced and stuff like that. So yeah, it depends wherever you guys live.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And a social plug, if you haven't done so already, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to hear the latest news about future SAA events. We thank you again for participating in tonight's event and look forward to seeing you in the future. I want to again thank our three panelists for giving us their time and for giving us so much of their knowledge. We truly appreciate you three taking your time to be here for all of us tonight. And I thank you all for being here at tonight's event.
Sure. Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you. Other than that, everybody have a good night. Thanks.
You too.